I feel bad about doing this to the Twins again. I really do, but today we're looking at what's probably their second worst trade of the 21st century. We did the Dumb and Young tree a while ago, that's definitely their worst, but this one? Honestly, I was surprised it's not that far off. This trade happened all the way back in 2009, and the other team, you look at my hat, it's the Brewers are still benefiting today, more than 14 years later. So this is the J.J. Hardy trade. In 2009, J.J. Hardy was downright awful. After an All-Star appearance in '07 and putting up a 115 OPS plus in '08, Hardy fell off hard, putting up just a 75 OPS plus and even being demoted to AAA in August. Following the season, Hardy had 2 years of team control remaining, and the Brewers had prospect Alcides Escobar waiting in the wings, so they decided to trade Hardy. Meanwhile, the Twins in 2009 were solid. They won the AL Central, and they were swept by the eventual World Series winning Yankees in the ALDS. With starting shortstop Orlando Cabrera leaving in free agency, they needed a replacement. They decided to deal from their deep outfield and swung a trade with the Brewers for Hardy. They settled on the 24-year-old Carlos Gomez, who'd been the centerpiece of the Johan Santana trade 2 years prior. Like Hardy, Gomez was elite defensively but underwhelming at the plate, and he filled a need in center field for the Brewers, so this makes for an intriguing one-for-one swap. So the trade was, the Twins got J.J. Hardy and the Brewers got Carlos Gomez. In 2010, Hardy rebounded a bit at the plate. He did deal with a couple injuries, but across 101 games he slashed .268, .320, .394 for a 96 OPS plus and 1.3 WAR. Better than his 2009, but still a far cry from his peak in 2007 and 2008. The Twins made the playoffs again, winning the AL Central with 94 wins. They faced the Yankees again in the ALDS and were swept again. Hardy went just 1 for 10 in 3 games. Hardy was now just a year from free agency, so following the season he was traded with depth infielder Brendan Harris to the Orioles for minor league pitchers Brett Jacobson and Jim Hoey. Now, if this sounds familiar, I've already covered this branch of the tree, because Brendan Harris was traded alongside Domingo Young. You can check that out, link is in the description. But just to quickly recap, Jacobson never reached the majors, he was released in 2012. And Hoey made 26 relief appearances for the Twins in 2011. And he wasn't really good. He pitched to a 75 ERA+, a whip near 2, and minus .6 WAR. And after the season, he was claimed off waivers by the Blue Jays. So that's it for the Twins here. The trade brought them just .7 WAR, and they only had players from the deal for a couple years, which isn't good. It's really not, but it wouldn't really hurt if Gomez continued to underachieve. And for the next 2 seasons, Gomez did just that. He spent 2010 mostly as a bench bat and defensive replacement, and he missed nearly half the season in 2011 with a fractured collarbone. While he was still one of the better defensive center fielders in baseball, he put up just a 79 OPS plus across 191 games. But in the 2011 playoffs, Gomez broke out, hitting .357 in 8 games as the Brewers made a run to the NLCS. And he carried that success into the 2012 season, beginning the year in a platoon in center field, but playing well enough to become the full-time starter. His bat was finally league average with a 101 OPS plus in 137 games. Gomez signed an extension heading into the 2013 season that would keep him in Milwaukee through 2016, and he became a true star for the next 2 seasons. He hit at least 23 homers and stole at least 34 bases each year. He made back-to-back All-Star games. He received MVP votes each year, and in 2013 his elite defense was finally recognized with a Gold Glove. He also had an attitude, which I must say as a neutral fan was a lot of fun to watch. Gomez earned the reputation of just being a punk. He flipped his bat, and he jawed with opposing players. Sometimes he broke bats, sometimes he tried to break them and failed. He was at the center of a few bench-clearing incidents, and he got on the nerves of everyone, from Garrett Cole to Freddie Freeman. Again, so much fun to watch as a neutral fan. In 2015, Gomez was hampered by some injuries. His hip and his hamstring, which slowed him down. He was on pace for his worst season since 2011 through the first half. And with the Brewers out of contention, Gomez nearing 30, and a year and a half left on his contract, they began to shop him, and they eventually traded him just before the deadline. Across nearly 700 games in Milwaukee, Gomez put up a 110 OPS plus and 18.9 WAR. Gomez was traded to the Mets, the team he debuted for nearly a decade earlier, for infielder Wilmer Flores and starting pitcher Zach Wheeler. This was announced in the middle of a Mets game, which led to dramatic footage of Flores weeping upon finding out he was leaving the Mets. Now at this point you may be thinking, Zach Wheeler was never a Brewer, that trade didn't happen. And you'd be right. Less than an hour after the trade was announced, Wheeler and the Mets had concerns over Gomez's hip, the Brewers were uncomfortable with Wheeler's elbow coming off Tommy John surgery, and the deal collapsed. Milwaukee general manager Doug Melvin pivoted, found a new trade partner, and Gomez was finally shipped out the following day. Gomez was packaged with starting pitcher Mike Fiers and sent to the Astros for 4 prospects, outfielders Domingo Santana and Brett Phillips, and pitchers Adrian Houser and Josh Hader. Santana had already made his MLB debut, but he started in AAA for the Brewers, He was called up in late August and showed some promise, putting up a 109 OPS plus in 38 games across the outfield. Santana was just as good across 77 MLB games in 2016, though he did miss half the season with injuries to his shoulder and elbow. He proceeded to break out in 2017. Winning the job of starting right fielder in camp, Santana hit 30 homers, stole 15 bases, and put up a 126 OPS plus in 151 games. And the team was competitive again, winning 86 games but falling just a game short of the second wild card. Heading into 2018, the Brewers revamped their outfield, signing Lorenzo Cain and trading for Christian Yelich, which relegated Santana to the bench. He got into just 85 games and wasn't nearly as good when he played, putting up a 97 OPS plus. The Brewers made the playoffs, winning the NL Central, and Santana pinch hit in all 10 playoff games, mostly for the pitcher late in the game. And he was actually somewhat successful. He helped knock out Clayton Kershaw early from Game 1 of the NLCS by hitting a 2-run single in the fourth. Following their elimination from the playoffs, Milwaukee traded Santana. Across 351 games, he put up a 115 OPS plus and 3.7 WAR. Santana was traded to Seattle for pitching prospect Noah Zavolas and outfielder Ben Gamel. Zavolas never reached the majors with Milwaukee. He was released in 2022. Gamel replaced Santana as the Brewers' fourth outfielder for 2019, and while he got into most games, appearing 134 times, it was often as a late defensive replacement or a pinch hitter, and he served the same role in the shortened 2020 season with 40 appearances. He pinch hit in a playoff game each year with no hits. Following the 2020 season, Gamel was non-tendered and left in free agency. Across his 174 games in the two seasons, Gamel put up .2 WAR. Brett Phillips reached the majors in June of 2017, and he had a couple stints with the Brewers that year. He was good across 38 games, putting up a 107 OPS plus. Phillips began 2018 bouncing between AAA and the majors, and in his limited MLB time, he didn't really play much, acting mostly as a defensive replacement or pinch hitter. At the deadline, with the Brewers in the middle of the playoff race and looking for reinforcements, they traded Phillips. In 52 games with Milwaukee, he put up a 94 OPS plus and 1.3 WAR. Phillips was traded alongside reliever Jorge Lopez to the Royals for infielder Mike Moustakas. Moustakas slotted in as the Brewers' primary third baseman for the rest of the year, and he was a solid piece in the middle of their lineup, batting .256 and putting up a 104 OPS plus in 54 games. And he was great in the NLDS sweep of the Rockies, but he struggled in the NLCS as the Brewers fell to the Dodgers in 7 games. Moustakas re-signed for the 2019 season, and he was great. He hit 35 homers, he set a career high in walks, he made the All-Star game, and he put up a 114 OPS plus in 143 games. And following the 2019 season, he left in free agency. In his year and a half with the Brewers, Moustakas put up 3.1 WAR. Adrian Houser reached the majors at the end of 2015, and he made 2 relief appearances, throwing 2 shutout innings. He then spent 2016 in the minors and spent most of 2017 injured. Houser returned to the Brewers a handful of times in 2018. In a relief appearance against the Phillies in June, he vomited twice, but he managed to finish the inning. In 2019, Houser began the year in the minors, but he returned to the Brewers in late April, and he cemented himself a job in the bullpen with a really solid stretch. Through 17 appearances, he had a sub-1 whip. Due to injuries to other starters, he moved to the rotation around the All-Star break, and he wasn't quite as good, but still put together a solid rookie season. And he vomited on the mound again in the first inning of an August start against the Rangers. He recovered to throw an absolute gem, 6 innings of 1-run ball with 10 strikeouts. Houser spent the next 4 seasons as a back-of-the-rotation arm, and he was somewhat successful, with a 102 ERA plus across over 400 innings, and he made 3 short relief appearances across the 2020 and 21 playoffs. Following the 2023 season, Houser had just a year before free agency, so the Brewers traded him. Across parts of 7 seasons in Milwaukee, Houser put up a 31-34 record, a 106 ERA plus, and 3.6 WAR. Houser was traded with outfielder Tyrone Taylor to the Mets for pitching prospect Coleman Crowe. Crowe's currently out recovering from Tommy John surgery, but he was very good at the AA level in 2022 and to start 2023. He's unlikely to pitch at all this year, but he could make his MLB debut in 2025. Josh Hader was called up to the majors in June of 2017, and he joined the Brewers bullpen for the rest of the season. And he was downright nasty. Through 35 appearances, he had a sub-1 whip and nearly 13 strikeouts per 9. In 2018, Hader continued his dominance as one of a few arms in the Brewers' pen getting save opportunities. At the end of April, he had one of the most dominant relief appearances ever, striking out 8 of 9 batters he faced across 2 2/3 innings. Hader made the All-Star game and finished the year with an absurd 143 strikeouts in just 81 1/3 innings. He finished 7th in Cy Young voting and became the first non-full-time closer to win NL Reliever of the Year. And in the playoffs, he was lights out, with 16 strikeouts and no runs allowed across 10 innings. Hader became the full-time closer in 2019. He made another All-Star game and finished 2nd in the NL with 37 saves. He dropped his whip to .8, and he struck out more than 16 batters per nine, and he won another NL Reliever of the Year award. In his second appearance of the year, he threw an immaculate inning. But in the playoffs, in the wildcard game against the Nationals, Hader got knocked around, and he blew the save. In the shortened 2020, Hader led the NL with 13 saves. He struck out 31 batters in just 19 innings. And Hader was phenomenal again in 2021. He became the quickest pitcher in history to reach 400 career strikeouts, achieving the feat in just 234 and two-thirds innings. He notched 34 saves in just 35 opportunities, made another All-Star game, and won yet another Reliever of the Year award. In September, Hader pitched the ninth inning to close out a combined no-hitter against the Indians. Now, despite a strong start to 2022 and yet another All-Star nod, Hader struggled over the summer, and nearing the trade deadline, he had a whip over 1 for the first time and a career-worst 96 ERA+. Hader had just a year and a half before free agency, so despite being fully in the hunt for the playoffs, the Brewers decided to trade him. Across over 300 innings in Milwaukee, Hader struck out over 500 batters, notched 125 saves, and put up 10.4 WAR. Hader was traded to the Padres for pitchers Dinelson Lamet and Taylor Rogers, pitching prospect Robert Gasser, and outfield prospect Esteury Ruiz. Lamet never pitched for the Brewers. He was released a few days later. Rogers had been the Padres' closer, and he became the Brewers' setup man to their new closer Devin Williams. But Milwaukee's gambit to replace Hader's save situations with Williams and his innings with Rogers backfired, as both struggled down the stretch and the Brewers finished a game back at the final wildcard spot. Rogers was particularly bad, pitching to a FIP over 5, a 74 ERA+, and -.4 WAR across 23 innings. Following the 2022 season, he left in free agency. Now, beyond having a phenomenal name for a pitcher, Gasser is now a top 10 prospect in the Brewers system. After the trade, he flew up the minor leagues, rising from high A to Triple A by the end of 2022, and he had a really solid year at Triple A in 2023. Gasser turns 25 this year, and he should make his MLB debut in 2024. Ruiz got into 3 games with the Brewers, going 0 for 8 with a walk. After the season, he was traded to the A's in a 3-team deal with the Braves. This is the Sean Murphy trade. The Brewers got back pitching prospect Justin Yeager, reliever Joel Payamps, and catcher William Contreras. Yeager is still in the Brewers system. He's currently at Double-A, but he's already 26 and he missed most of last year with injuries. He did have a really strong 2022 season in the Braves system, so I don't think it's impossible for him to reach the majors, but at this point, at his age, it's unlikely. Payamps joined the Brewers bullpen for 2023, and he had a great year. Across more than 70 innings, he put up a 168 ERA+, a whip just over 1, and 1.6 WAR. And with Devin Williams injured to start 2024, Payamps is moving into the role of closer for at least the first half of the year. And William Contreras took over as the Brewers' starting catcher for 2023, and he had a breakout year. Across 141 games, he slashed .289, .367, .457 for a 126 OPS+, and 3.8 WAR. He won the catching Silver Slugger and finished 11th in NL MVP voting. Contreras is just 26, and he's under team control for 4 more seasons, so he should be a big part of the next competitive Brewers team whenever that is. So altogether, the Brewers have gotten 46.4 WAR back from this trade, and that number is almost certainly going to go up as they still have Joel Payamps for 3 years, William Contreras for 4, and a few young arms in the pipeline. So yeah, the Brewers win this. The Brewers win by so much. This was a lot of fun to make. You know, even though it's such a slam dunk trade, I do enjoy looking at the ones where it's not really clear and I've got to make a judgment, but these are fun too. It lets me revisit some players from my childhood, like for this one, Carlos Gomez, ended his career so poorly, bouncing from Houston to Texas to Tampa, back to his Mets, finally in 2019, I think it was. So the last memories I have of him are not as a really good ball player, but being able to look back at him in 2013, 2014, just how electric he was, how dynamic, how fun he was to watch, that was great for me. Anyway, if you made it this far, leave a like down below, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you never miss another upload. I'm always looking for more suggestions, keep leaving them in the comments, and I'll see y'all in the next trade tree.